In April, Mr. Capabianco gave me a second warning based on a complaint that was sent by Shirley. She emailed, using personal emails, that she had a complaint from a neighbor of mine who coincidentally likes all of Shirley's posts on Facebook. Honestly, we had planned to deal with the garage this year since we got our mortgage paid off, or I would have fought the way this went down with fake emails and friends of Shirley putting in complaints, because I know it was punishing me for daring to be on council. Meanwhile, there is a house on East Avon where the sidewalk is dangerous and actual residents have complained, but it has never been fixed. Ms. Percival said that our expenses...
I know that it's punishing me for daring to be on council.
Hi everybody. My name is Allison Giannakis and I live at 120 West Forestry Road. I have a question, but I'll ask that after I have a brief statement. Just to introduce myself to everybody here at the council meeting, most people may or may not recognize my house as the house with the lion statue on the sidewalk.
She says that because when Anna Guy introduces herself to people, she says, "Do you know the house with the lion statue? That's my house." And I know that for a fact because I was a poll worker this year and last year. And she was a watcher, and I got to know her a little bit. And when she introduced herself to me, and she said, and I was like, "Oh, that's your lion?" And she said, "Yes." But this lion has been in this woman's family since her grandfather put it there years and years ago.
I've been a resident of Parkside for over 20 years, and before that it was my parents' house, and before that it was my grandparents who lived in the house. So my grandparents were actually the originator of that lion on the sidewalk. With that said, this is the first time that I've ever been to a council meeting, let alone made any kind of a public statement. But out of necessity, I have been given no other option. I'd like to take this opportunity to respond directly to the council president regarding her statement that was read in lieu of a president's report at last month's September council meeting. I say in lieu because, in contrast to other council reports, I believe it failed to provide any relevant new information. The statement was picking up where you left off from the previous council meeting, I believe, in an extended attempt to discredit and publicly berate your colleagues under the guise of not being given the opportunity to explain how much money could be saved if other options for employing code enforcement and inspections officers were explored. But when the reality is that the agenda item and the issue had been previously discussed before with the council and also not passed on a vote. So, in my opinion, the majority of council and residents alike have all spoken. They've relayed their opinion on the value, speaking on the value in the multitude of services, both currently and historically, that have been provided to the borough and reinvested into the borough by these valued employees and residents. But while in contrast, your statement directly described not only those unchanged fees as robbing the residents, but described Mr. Capabianco directly and others as practicing self-enrichment, which I would consider a loose term for being a thief. In addition, at the time, you didn't have an answer to the question that was presented to you at that time as to why now there was the interest in the fees and those employees versus the previous years that you have been on council. I know that you supplied an answer now a month later. While I cannot speak specifically to the examination of those fees or your research, what I can speak to, and mostly the reason that I'm here, is the direct reference to me in that statement and how you only provided the details that fit your ferociously self-serving motive and narrative. For reference, in the statement, Mrs. Guy described the actions of the borough's code enforcement officer, Nick Capabianco, as personal attacks and bullying in the form of unsubstantiated or fictitious, as you said tonight, complaints for the code violations on her property or by friends of Shirley's. She chose to manipulate her own experience to benefit herself and make it personal while providing a lie as truth and evidence with absolutely no proof. I know this to be true because I, in fact, am the actual person who filed the complaints to the borough regarding the dilapidated property. I will not be reduced to merely a vague description of a political enemy. So, Mrs. Guy, you are not a victim or a target of personal attacks, but you are, in fact, the owner of a property with a dilapidated garage with
Not
no
anymore.
roof.
Not
That
anymore.
was a safety health concern and needed to be dealt with for years with no action.
Are you Barbara Merritt? Because that was
To
the
be
first
clear,
person who
excuse me, I'm
complained.
speaking. To be clear, this had nothing to do with politics or associations. So you don't get to discredit me or my complaint merely by describing me in your statement as a random fictitious person.
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about
Unlike
Barbara
you,
Merritt.
I have proof, and I am more than happy to provide any pictures or documentation of the sort to anyone that wants it. My suspicion to the answer to the question that you a month later answered tonight as to why there was the sudden interest in the fees, etc. I, in my opinion, believe that there is no interest in or an issue with what you state to be the exorbitant fees or even saving the borough money. By fact, your statement is grounded in personal hate and at the very least, undocumented hearsay. So, Mrs. Guy, that makes you the very thing that you accused another of. Mrs. Guy, you are the bully. You are using your position to execute personal vendettas against council members, employees, and even residents alike. I know this to be true because I am, in fact, a target of such behavior. Since the complaint and the violation, you have effortlessly, deliberately, and continuously attempted to bully me regarding my property by means of total disregard to the point of police involvement. Again, I have hours of video and proof that I am more than happy to supply upon request. For reference, Mrs. Guy has been my direct neighbor with an adjacent driveway for the better part of 15 years, and most of that time has been uneventful. It goes without saying that the property maintenance issue was evolving, but more recently, as the relationship became more contentious, I had to involve the Parkside Police for the first time in my life to protect my property from continual damage. I've had my property officially surveyed, so there's no confusion about boundaries, but that didn't stop them from defacing and destroying my property and markers. I believe this is not only a retaliation for the complaint, but also because Mrs. Guy has a total lack of respect for any person, place, or thing that does not align with her interests or entitlements. The residents of Parkside should know that this is the kind of person representing the borough. This is the kind of person making decisions for the borough. And this is the kind of person who is an example of our borough. I have been in a leadership role in my career for a lot longer than you have been on council, and I would never treat my colleagues, employees, neighbors, or even my friends the way that has been publicly on display at these meetings and on social media. It is at best unprofessional and at worst utterly embarrassing. I think you should spend more time on the betterment of the borough and less time on personal vendettas. Our residents, including myself,